The Boys. It has been 7 years and 5 seasons, and if I had to sum up the season in one word, disappointing. Now I want to say, by the time I'm writing this, I've only watched up to episode 7. I'll add a small segment later talking about the finale because they don't want to wait another week to post this video. So first, I want to start with the positives. Anthony Starr as Homelander continues to be one of the best parts of this show. Same thing with Karl Urban as Butcher, even Jeffrey Dean Morgan in episode 7. That entire scene was done really well, and The Boys can still have the insane and funny moments that it's known for, but that is about it. I looked back at my old video on season 4, and a lot of the complaints that I had back then still apply now. The first is the pacing. Season 4 felt pretty slow, but at that time I excused it because I thought it was setting up for the final season. The first 2 episodes actually moved at a decent pace this season though. Episode 1 was getting the boys back together. We also got A-Train's ending, which I thought was handled really well. It was genuinely sad to see him go. Then in episode 2, we finally start testing the virus that season 4 spent so much time building up, and then with Soldier Boy accidentally being there, we learn that soups with V1 are immune to this virus that they made, which leads into episode 3, where both the boys and Homelander realize they both need to find the V1 before the other side does. But the problem is, we just spend way too many episodes looking for V1. From episodes 3 through 6, it feels like the plot barely moves. We found a lead. Oh wait, V1 wasn't there, but we found another clue. That clue didn't lead to V1 either, but it led to another clue. And I want to make it clear, a show does not need nonstop action to be entertaining, but the plot was barely progressing, and the multiple side plots that ultimately meant nothing definitely didn't help. Like in episode 4, I have to watch the boys fighting each other while also trying not to fight Homelander and Soldier Boy. But then every few minutes, the episode cuts away to Starlight and her father. I understand world building matters, but this is episode 4 out of 8 in the final season. The world should already be built. And what was the point? I wouldn't be surprised if we never see her father or he's even mentioned again. Same thing with Noir and the Deep. At first their scenes were funny, but eventually it started feeling like way too much screen time was being dedicated to them. And then it ends with one of the most unsatisfying deaths we've had in this whole entire series. It wasn't even a fight. Apparently the writers just forgot Noir can fly because they made him look even dumber than the Deep. Episode 5 was also just entirely frustrating. Creators online were hyping this episode so much. A lot of that had to do with the Supernatural reunion with the actor who played Soldier Boy and Mr. Marathon. And the plot in that episode barely moves forward until the last 15 minutes. And even then, it's still just another tiny step forward into finding V1. And by the end of episode 6, we finally get to where the story needed to be. But honestly, it was too late. And episode 7 proves that. It might genuinely be one of the worst penultimate episodes I've seen in a while because it highlights every single pacing issue that this season has had so far. Because now, in episode 8 alone, we somehow have to beat Homelander, deal with Ryan, deal with the American government after Homelander killed the president, wrap up Vought, wrap up the Gen V characters, figure out what's happening with Soldier Boy because they put him back in the cryo chamber again, and conclude all of the side characters and the boys themselves in one single episode that, from what I've seen, isn't even any longer than the previous episode we had. The next major issue though is with this season's writing. The Boys was never some masterclass, even at its best, but it's usually funny and entertaining. This season though, those moments just aren't landing anymore. A lot of the weird or shocking scenes feel incredibly forced now, like the one in episode 7. At this point, I just do not care about them anymore, and somehow it's not even the worst part. The Boys has never been serious either, but the season takes things to a completely different level of stupidity. Like in episode 4, the boys go to this abandoned building looking for V1, and they find a soup whose power is releasing this gas into the air that makes everyone more aggressive until they eventually just kill each other. Everyone there gets affected, and including soups like Butcher, Kimiko, Homelander, and Soldier Boy. Everyone gets affected except for Frenchie, the normal human. Why? Because he used to be a drug addict. When they said that, I genuinely laughed because of how stupid it was. And in that same episode, a friend pointed out something else to me. When the boys are fighting each other, Huey literally shoots MM in the back, and it's never brought up again. The whole fight in general was weird. There's a scene where Kimiko bends the metal pipe as an intimidation thing, and the entire interaction just felt so awkward. Then again, in episode 7, when they're trying to find O-Father, they discover that there are psychics there who can read their minds and then know all of the plans that they have, which is exactly what happens to Butcher and Huey. I guess these people also have like powers to knock people out with their minds, but MM and Starlight avoid getting caught because MM hits a weed pen, I'm assuming, and says,
Best defense against psychics Weed numbs your brain so they can't read you.
Weed numbs your brain so psychics can't read your thoughts. And somehow it works. And you wouldn't believe, but again, in episode 7, it's almost like this episode is terrible. But we finally get introduced to Marie Moreau. Only took them 7 episodes to introduce the supposed Homelander level soup. And I could keep going about all the dumb writing decisions the season has made, but I want to move on to something that bothers me even more. What they are doing with this franchise. The boys used to make fun of superhero franchises. The 7 had their own fake Avengers movies. Vought had its own cinematic universe. But now, that is literally what The Boys is becoming. So earlier, I mentioned the character Marie Moreau. She's the main character of the show Gen V. The main thing of Gen V is setting up Marie because her superpower is that she can control blood. In all mediums, blood control is pretty broken, so in The Boys, where so many superheroes are extremely weak, she would destroy. The first season takes place in between seasons 3 and 4 of The Boys, so when season 4 came out, I was expecting to see that Homelander level soup that they dedicated a show to, but no, she was not there. Only 2 characters from Gen V were shown in the finale episode of season 4, and they weren't even used in this season once, at least so far. Then there's Gen V season 2, which is just setting up Marie to be even stronger, and how she would be a major help in defeating Homelander, which she still might be in this season, but I honestly think it would feel so out of place because it took them so long to introduce her to people who did not watch Gen V, and it would feel so out of place if she just beat him like nothing. And then there's Vought Rising. Look, prequels can be good. Better Call Saul is one of my favorite shows ever, but let's be honest, this show is probably going to suck. What they've done to Soldier Boy's character just to set up another spin-off is honestly sad. Bombsight, Soldier Boy, the weird tree guy, all the Stormfront stuff, it all feels like a weird setup for another show instead of serving this season. How did Soldier Boy and Stormfront become so close? Well, tune in next year so Amazon can keep milking this franchise. And sure, Vought Rising will probably still do decent numbers because Soldier Boy is in it, but who's actually going to care about this universe once Butcher and Homelander are gone? And what's even crazier is that Gen V was apparently supposed to get a 3rd season that would take place after season 5 of The Boys, but it ended up getting canceled really recently. And all I ask is why? Shouldn't all of this be resolved by the end of The Boys? Like, I feel bad for the actors, but that season genuinely would just be pointless. Apparently there's also The Boys Mexico series coming, but again, who cares? Because if the finale of the regular The Boys ends up being mediocre or worse, I genuinely do not think people are going to care about whatever Amazon tries to do with this franchise afterwards. So I just finished watching episode 8. Yeah, I don't even really know what to say. I do not really think it was all that great. I wouldn't go and say that it was bad, but it also isn't good. I would say it's mediocre, closer to being bad than good. Like I said, this episode needed to do a lot of stuff and not a lot of time, and they couldn't. That it was impossible for them to do it, at least do it well. I feel like a lot of stuff was kind of like pushed in last minute just because we have to get it done. I really do think that this is going to get a bad audience like a rating. I don't think people are gonna like this episode at all. Again, I'm not gonna say it's terrible. I'm just gonna say it was pretty mediocre. It was not a satisfying ending to these 5 seasons of the show, and that's what I expected. You can't get that much stuff done in one episode that's only an hour long and have it be done well. So I do feel for the actors. I feel for everyone who's worked on the show. They're gonna get a bunch of shit for this stuff. It's the actors' job to act, and I don't really think there are bad actors in the show. There is just the writers who have gotten pretty terrible. I absolutely hate the ending for Butcher. I'm going to go into spoilers. So the ending of the episode was like, we need to kill off Butcher. So for some reason, Terror just dies. Butcher's dog just dies. Butcher's now angry, so he's like, I'm gonna go kill the rest of the soups. And I think that whole entire moment was just done so poorly. Butcher should have just died right after Homelander died. Butcher's, Ryan's, and Homelander's powers were all removed. They do not have powers. Butcher has cancer. So I think it would have been a more impactful ending if they just killed him off there with Huey feeling sad instead of having Huey kill him like he did in the comics. I just don't think it was something that was needed, and I do not think it was good. Also, the Gen V characters, you were supposed to get a satisfying ending. I'm pretty sure that is exactly what one of the producers or something said, that the Gen V characters would get a satisfying ending in this finale because their show is getting canceled, and they did not. They did nothing They were there for 2 seconds. Only 3 of the characters out of all of Gen V were there, and they did nothing. So I think it was just a complete waste. I don't even really see the point of the show. Marie did not fight anybody. They didn't do anything. I don't know how we ended last episode with telling them we need to help fight, and then they didn't do anything. I just think it was just dumb. That's all I really have to say about it. Yeah, peace.